Like Pelosi's like you're like 60. Like these
Yeah.
people, like there has to be, and then why is that a thing? And it cannot
Well,
be
but
changed.
no, it can't be changed. And here's the thing: we needed a constitutional amendment to term limit the president. At the time the Constitution was written, 1787, people thought, and this the thought of term limits came up at the convention of 1787.
Wow.
People talked about it, and they said, "Well, we probably shouldn't have them because what would it mean if we did? Well, that means we would be limiting the choice of the public if they decided they really liked this guy and wanted him for a third term or a second term, whatever. Um, they wouldn't have that opportunity, and there's something perfectly reasonable about that. Then you realize all the benefits of incumbency that we know about in retrospect that the guys at the convention could never have predicted.
Right.
And then it seems that when you get 95% reelection rates, there's probably an advantage to being in the Congress if you
Right.
want to stay in the Congress, right? But here's the thing: we needed a we needed an amendment to get the president term limited. So the 2 terms that comes from the constitutional amendment, not the original drafted material. And nowhere in the Constitution does it say word one about term limits for House members or senators. And people were pushing them through at the state level, right? Because if you think about it, every single person in our government is elected in a state. The president and the vice president are the only two that aren't, right?
Mhm.
So everybody, one way or another, is from a state. So it seemed reasonable for people to conclude, well, given that they work for the states or some such, right? Then it would be reasonable for state governments to implement term limits. And not unsurprisingly, you got Republican state governments deciding to term limit out a bunch of Democrats who
Right.
had won statewide election. It's obvious that that was a bunch of bullshit that they were doing.
Right.
And when it was reversed, you see what a bunch of nonsense this becomes. But most people don't know this. In 1995, a case made its way to the Supreme Court. It was at U.S. Term Limits versus Thornton. And the Supreme Court of the United States declared term limits unconstitutional. So that's the reality you have to live with. In order to make them constitutional, you require a constitutional amendment, just like we had with the presidency. And if it's such a good goddamn idea, well, then go get one. It
Right.
should be easy to get a constitutional amendment if everybody agrees with you.
Right.
But come to find out, nobody agrees with you. Now, I think given the polarization that we see right now, you can see where we will never have that supermajority that would be required to get an amendment through.
Right.
That's just how it is.
Right.
But people, I think they talk about term limits all the time as if we could just wave a magic wand tomorrow and make that happen. We can't.
Right.
Right?
Takes a lot.
You can have term limits in your state legislatures. That happens, right? That's a thing that happens. And when people know that's a thing that happens, they think, well, why the hell can't we just do it here too?
Right.
But the rules are in fact different.
Right.
So
Interesting. I
if,
never
if
knew
you
that.
if you think that's a great idea, sorry, you're out of luck. It's not.
Yeah. I just, is it fair though?
Probably, I think. At least, look, you're delving into that layer that's really just opinion.
Right.
There's no fact that I could throw down here, but I'm persuaded by the original arguments that there is a term limit. It's called an election.
So win
You
the
know,
election.
if your guy is so terrible, it should be real easy to beat him.